Well, Bitcoin's not a security, right? We've already crossed that chasm. The real question you should be asking yourself is what happens if they categorize Ethereum and every other crypto as a security?
But you're underestimating the power of politicians to screw things up. You're underestimating the power of them not liking a person like you to get up and say whatever you want to say, and you offend them. You offend politicians. You know, people who are. Yeah, I've just read an article right now from Politico. Can you pull up the Politico article? It's just the way they write it.
But the real point here is there's 17,000 cryptos, and all the rest are much more centralized. So
yeah, but they know the most powerful one is the one that you're supporting.
And the reason it's powerful is because it's completely decentralized, and no one nation state can shut it down. Not even all of them can shut it down, even if they wanted to.
So these sweet, amazing, nice, kind, supportive people who love independent thinkers like you, politicians, you don't think behind closed doors they're sitting there trying to figure out a way to regulate or get their hands on Bitcoin because they're starting to lose a little control with the Bitcoin community? Because the Bitcoin community, essentially the crypto community, forget, let's just say Bitcoin one side and the crypto community. I said this the other day, I think it's becoming a political party. I think the crypto community is becoming a political party. And
First of all, there's like 250 million people that are pro Bitcoin right now, and this is spreading at millions per week. So you can't find any large constituency that's anti, right? It's a virus that's spreading, right? You're not going to get any votes by being against Bitcoin, right? There is no constituency that is anti-Bitcoin. Second, regulation's not bad, right? Sometimes people say, oh, they're going to regulate it as bad. No, the truth of the matter is the faster the regulation comes, the faster the 17,000 other cryptos get sorted into their buckets as securities, platforms, art, etc. And that will actually shake out a lot of the noise in the system, result in a lot of capital focusing upon the winner, which is Bitcoin. And it'll also accelerate the entry of institutional capital into the space because there's $100 trillion worth of money that's not in the crypto space that's afraid to come into the space because they're not sure about the definitions between the securities, the platforms, the art, and the property.
Yeah, that's a valid concern.
So in fact, the regulation probably would be the best thing that ever happened.
I've seen you say that, yeah.
Can I read a quote that you've actually said?
Yeah.
It's on page 4. Bitcoin evangelist Michael Saylor says clear crypto regulations would speed institutional adoption, says CNBC story. Tighter government crypto regulations would actually be a positive catalyst for Bitcoin, MicroStrategy co-founder Michael Saylor says. Additional regulatory...
Depends on what the regulation is.
Well, yeah, that's what I want him to clarify. He says additional regulatory clarity from the Biden administration is going to benefit Bitcoin and accelerate institutional adoption of that asset. Stressing a major Bitcoin believer and holder, he's looking for clear, bright line definitions of a digital property versus a digital security versus a digital currency and the operating rules of the digital exchange.
You said something. You said there's 250 million people that are pro crypto, right, or pro Bitcoin, but 250 million people.
Probably more after this week.
Okay,
right? We probably made 200 million fans.
I don't disagree, but I think
you're saying because of Ukraine.
Yeah, but not just Ukraine, Canada. There's a lot of different things that's going on. But here's what I would also say, Michael. There's 7.5 billion people in the world that are pro freedom, except for the people that are pro communism and control. You're underestimating the power. Don't you think? Because we're part of the same party under thinking, but don't you think we're underestimating the power of the few who hate independent thinkers who go make their money and they're sitting around, constantly advancing and questioning them? And in a way, cryptocurrency is a big middle finger to all the politicians. And they don't want to have 250 million middle fingers, right? So how do you address that part amongst these few that like to control people like you?
It looks like Bitcoin's winning. If we look at what's happening, Bitcoin is spreading everywhere in the world.
It's only been a few years,
right? I mean, it's the most powerful disruptive force in the decade. Look at the rate at which it's spreading, 0 to 250 million people. And if you turn on CNBC and watch, count the number of minutes that'll go by before you'll see the Bitcoin ticker flip up on the screen or before they'll start talking about it. As far as I can see, the idea of Bitcoin and the idea of digital property and digital money and digital freedom is spreading pretty aggressively, very aggressively. I don't really so much worry about it because, I've met with a lot of people, including a lot of politicians. I think you might find 1 out of 20 that will be trollish, that'll be negative because they think it gets them attention. But if you speak to most people in private, they all think it's a pretty good idea. I think you probably find a lot of advocates in Russia right now. A lot of advocates. Remember what happened when Putin or when the Russian bank said they were going to ban it, and then all of a sudden they reversed their stance within 24 hours, right? You see the same thing happening in every single other place in the world. If you look at the Senate and Congress, there's the consensus in Congress right now is very pro-crypto, and it's very pro-Bitcoin. It's not anti. If you look at the administration is moving forward with guidelines that'll be beneficial to the industry. There is a schism between the institutions and the entrepreneurs, by the way. Like, for example, if JP Morgan can issue a stable coin, then the existing stablecoin issuers would view that as being competitive to them. So there's a lot of tension between institutions and entrepreneurs and between states and federal government. But I don't think anybody disagrees with the idea that Bitcoin's here to stay and this is spreading. And so I'm not much worried about it. But look, you can choose to be pessimistic and say, oh yeah, well somebody somewhere will take it away because it's too good an idea. But what are you going to do? Roll over and die?
I don't think it's pessimism. You started your company in '89, and you went public in '98. You got a $10 million deal with McDonald's in '92. From 1990 to 96, your company grew at 100% every year. If I'm getting these facts right, you come from an era where Andy Grove was God. And Andy Grove wrote a book where he ran Intel. I think they ran the company at what pace they were growing. He wrote a book called Only the Paranoid Survive. Yeah. So there's a difference between pessimism and paranoia. The paranoia from a few comes from supporting the cause of crypto. Nobody's sitting there saying, in so many ways, this makes sense. It's tough to argue this. Who doesn't want to not be controlled by the bank? I can't think of any time where a bank has been the low income, middle income, or the average guy's best friend who's ever liked the bank. I don't think any time anybody's ever liked the bank. The low to middle income and the rich, unless when the rich was just getting money without, what you're talking about with it's being printed. My skepticism is to be a little bit paranoid about what these politicians who sit around wanting their names to be on a bill and a law that can regulate to brag about it. That's the only, paranoia that exists.
And the rational response to that is go educate the world. So if you go to hope.com, Bitcoin is hope. Go to hope.com, there's courses and books and educational materials on Bitcoin. If you go to my website, Saylor.org, we've got a free Bitcoin for Everybody course. We've given it to tens of thousands of people. Why do you think I'm sitting here talking to you today?
But I think to level above that, though.
If I was arrogant and presumptuous, I just sit back and wait for the inevitable to take place. But I don't think we can sit back and wait. I think we got to go and speak with every politician, every influencer. We got to reach out to every community. You got to go on television. Go on CNBC, Fox, CNN, Bloomberg, and educate. Look. Bitcoin is the digital transformation of, and we are living through the digital transformation of property, money, and energy. And once you understand this idea, digital transformation of property, money, and energy, you realize that, the world's not going to understand that for a decade. It'll take 10 years, 15, 20 years before people get their hands around what is that. It's so inconceivable. If you go back 100 years and you look at electricity, how long did it take before people really understood the concept of electric energy? Can't touch it, right, without getting shocked by it, but it was a scary thing. By the way, it was regulated, right? It was regulated, and it took a long time for people to embrace it, and it changed the entire world. The same happened with chemical energy in the form of Standard Oil. It was regulated, took a long time for people to appreciate it. Aviation, air power, nuclear power, all of these things. Digital energy is cyber power. Bitcoin is cyber power, right? The next war will be fought in cyberspace. If you don't master digital energy, you're not going to win it. You can't even defend against it. Most people haven't even figured this out right now, that digital energy is critical. But even I got a lot of Twitter followers. When I post on Twitter, only about a third of my followers understand what digital energy is, right? They don't really get the idea. We have created a file which we can move at the speed of light on a layer 2 or layer 3 network, on an Apple Pay network or a WhatsApp network or any website that moves energy in a conservative fashion through cyberspace for the first time in human history. That's a profound idea. They don't get it, right? If I have a digital music file and I send it to you and you run it through your headphones or you run it through a speaker, you can listen to music. If I take away the computer and I take away the headphones, is it still digital music? Sure it is, a digital music file, but you need to actually decode it and run it through a speaker with electricity for it to be digital music. That's profound. If I have a file as digital energy and it holds $1 billion in it, and I send it to you in Tokyo, and you run it through that decoder, and then you go and you buy $1 billion of electricity, or $1 billion worth of weapons, or $1 billion worth of buildings, I have moved digital energy through cyberspace. I have to decode it. It's a big idea. We never did it before, right? It's like putting something in orbit, right? Everything's ballistic until it finally hits escape velocity, and then it orbits the Earth forever. And orbiting forever in orbit is a pretty big idea. That's what's going on here. It'll take a while for people to figure it out. We got to educate them.